Hello, welcome to this video on Excel and on retirement. This is for the retirement project. This is Mr. Soto, and in this video I'd like you to become more familiar with Excel, to be able to create and save a worksheet, and to perform simple calculations using Excel. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is my home screen on a Mac computer. Later on I will have a video on Windows computer. And here on my Mac, this X down here, notice it says Microsoft Excel. This is the Excel program. This is the spreadsheet program we're going to use today. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And this window will come up. Now we're going to go with Excel workbooks. There's many things you can do here, but the Excel workbook is what we want to use, so double click on that. Okay, now here I'm going to make my window just slightly bigger just so I can see, and I'm going to make the font a little bigger, so I'm going to use 150%. So now it's a little bit easier to see. And we're going to start off by just making sure that we label this correctly so that when you turn it in, I know who turned it in. So here in the first, on the first column, A, and the second row, 2, if you just type in name with colons, then press enter or return. And if you can type in date with a colon, enter return, and then assignment. Can't spell it. All right, there we go. And one of the things I'd like you to be able to do is to go ahead and highlight these three, so drag the three of them, and then just go here to the B and just press bold. Okay. Now, one of the things that I want to show you is how to resize a column. So notice that right now my cursor, up here the cursor is just an arrow, but once I bring it down here, the cursor is a square. A cross. Notice that when I bring it close to the top, it becomes a black cross. And so what we can do here is if you click and drag, you can make the width of the column as big or as small as you want. Okay. Now what I like to do is make it just right, but I don't want to guess. And so the computer or Excel will actually do this for you. If you go down to this line and you double click, it'll actually resize it for you to the correct size, or to the size that makes it look nicest, I guess. Okay. Now your name, if you can type in your first and last name. My first name is Roberto, last name Soto. The date, today's date is the 12th of November, so 11/12/14. And the assignment, this is the retirement assignment. One thing I'll do here is show you something else about Excel. If I'm going to highlight these, alignment. So in each cell you can align things to the left. So notice where my cursor is at right now. It says align text left. If you press that button, everything goes to the left. If I go right next to it, it says center text. So this will center your text in the cell. And then here it'll align it to the right. I prefer right. I leave this up to you though. Let's go ahead and save though. So we're going to save. There's lots of ways to save. I'm going to go ahead and press this button. It says save this workbook. And what I'm going to suggest that you call this so that I know exactly who to look for. If you can call this retirement, save it wherever you want. Eventually you're going to put it in the Dropbox. Save it as retirement. And then parentheses R, your first initial, not R, sorry, excuse me. Your first initial of your first name. And then your last name. My last name is Soto. So R Soto for me, it depends for you. So first initial, then last name. And then just go ahead and press save. And now we've saved this, and now we know we won't lose it. So one of the things we're going to do today is I want to show you a model, and this model is for compound interest, and so it has a lot of variables. I'd like to explain what these are. C would be how much we initially invest, R is going to be the interest rate, N is going to be how many times you get interest paid from a bank, and P would be exactly how much money you're going to make after a while. And so let's go ahead and type this in. And so let's type it here. Let's say initial investment in A6. So initial investment, and I want this to be represented by C. Oh, notice that we cut off, we can't see it anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and resize this again. So go to A and double click, and then again it makes it the right size. So the initial investment will be C. Let's go ahead and type in the interest, no, not the interest rate. Yeah, the interest rate. So the interest rate. And we'll call this R. And then the N, number of times compounded per year. And this is N. Oh, then again, we ran out of space, so let's resize it. You can pause if you need to, and then come back. Make sure you type these in. Right next to this, in column C, we're going to type the amount. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say that somebody invested $5,000, and the interest rate was 8%, and they want to compound this simple interest once per year. And so what will happen what we can do is change this so that it reflects a little bit of what we're doing. So this is money. So if we go up here to this button, notice that it'll say something about alternate currency. Well, this is currency. This is how you make things look like dollar signs. And then for the 8, I think I want percent. And this is where percents are at. So I'm going to go ahead and put percent. But it said 800%. Well, of course, 8 is 800%. But if I type 8 now it knows I want 8%, 0.08 in other words. Okay. This is the situation. Let's say that in 1995, your parents, so year, maybe it was 1995, they invested money for you, or maybe you invested money, but most of you were probably not born or very, very young. And I want to know how much I've made so far. So it's time from 1995. Oh, so let's say $5,000 is in 1995. Oh, before I continue, notice something. Usually we want units here. So let's change this a little bit. So let me show you how this would change. If you want to change a cell that you've already typed something in, what you do is you go to this bar, and in this bar you're allowed to click. And when you click, you're allowed to change things. So here what I would like you to do is press space, put a parenthesis. Our initial investment's always in dollars. And let's go ahead and put an equal sign there so it looks a little bit nicer. The interest rate is always a percent per year. So I'm going to go ahead and press, parentheses, percent, and then type in per year. And then the equal sign again. Again, I ran out of room, so I'm going to double click to resize the column. And then n is just n. This has no units. It's just the number of times. So now, let's go ahead. What I wanted to do was say from 1995. So let's say right now, I want to know how much money we would have. And in fact, what I'd like to know is the investment total amount after T years. And let's go ahead and highlight this and make it bold so that it stands out. And I'm going to resize every single column to make sure that they're the size that we can see. Okay, so a couple of things. I want to know the time from 1995. Now you know it's been 19 years since 1995. So, but we want Excel to do this. We don't want to have to type in 19 every time we want to change. So for example, what if you want to know how much the money would be worth in 250? You don't want to have to do the math. You want Excel to do it for you. And so the way you can do this is right here in the cell, instead of typing 19, let's type equals. Let's type equals and then say, let's take the year and let's subtract it from 1995. And they should give us how many years it's been since 1995. Just as a check, you can play with this. 2005 is 10 years away, sure enough. 2015 is 20 years away. 2025 is 30 years away, and so on. So it works. But I want to know how much the money would be worth right now. If your parents or someone had invested $5,000 at 8% in 1995. Finally, how do we type this formula in? Well, we have to do it very carefully, obviously. And it says that first we should take the C. Well, the C is the initial amount. So here, I just click on that 5,000. Then I have to press times. The times is the star. It's over the 8. You have to press shift and 8. Or if you have a keypad, a numeric keypad, there should be a star there, the time symbol. Then we need a parentheses. And then we need a 1. Then we have to add the rate over n. So I go to the rate, which is R, which is 8%, divided by n. Close the parentheses, and now I have exponents. To get the exponents, we press Shift and 6, and this gives you the symbol that's called a caret, like the thing that you eat. And then we need to do n times t, but we want to make sure that the computer knows what we're doing. So we're going to put parentheses, and then we're going to do n, which is 1, times t. And t would be right here, 19. That's our t. In fact, we should close the parentheses and press enter, and this is how much money we would have right now. Let's press the currency so we can actually see how much it is. And right here, time from 1995, we should probably put a T because I didn't know that was T. It's good to kind of label these. Gotta do the width again. So after 19 years, if somebody had found 8%, this would be good. Well, let's say you're like, wow, this is kind of a sweet deal. Maybe I want to know what's going to happen 50 years from now. So that would be in 2045. And sure enough, 50 years from now, that $5,000 would be $234,000. Now, one of the cool things about compounded interest is that if you change n, there are some banks that pay interest every 12 months. And so let's say that's the bank your parents had invested in. If I change the 12 here, notice that you'd make a little bit more money, $269,000 instead of the previous amount. So you might be thinking, well, let me make this number bigger. And sure enough, there are banks that pay a little bit more. They pay interest 360 times per year. And notice you would make a little bit more, but not as much as you would think, right? If you compound ones, it's 234. If you compound 360 times, it's 272. Okay, well, if you 30,000, more than $30,000, that's not bad, or close to 40 actually. This is pretty good. So you do want to find banks that compound more. Of course, not every bank gives this much interest. And right now, in fact, I have a bank that gives less than 1%. In fact, my bank only gives 0.75%. 0.75, not 75. Or maybe, oh, let's do 1% then. Look at that. If it was 1%, so I make less than this. This bank, if your parents could only find a bank that gives 1%, in 50 years you'd only have 8,000. And in fact, today you would only find 6,000. And so in this project, we're going to explore better investments, but this is an idea of how to use Excel and how to get this formula typed in. So let's go ahead and press save. And there will be a worksheet that I'm going to ask you to fill out after you've played with this. All right. There is a second video where we'll learn how to make tables, maybe make graphs. That'll be coming next.